Hello and welcome everyone to this, which is the first of a series of seminars being hosted by Sheba Arts, exploring diversity and grassroots self-advocacy, the challenges and solutions. Before we start, I've just got a few technical points. If everyone could please put themselves on mute. For the first half of the seminar, we're going to be hearing from our wonderful panel, and during this time, if you have any questions, please just write them in the chat box and we'll get back to them later. We'll have a short comfort break after the first hour, and then when we come back we'll open it up to more of a discussion. So if you'd like to ask a question then or make a point, please just raise your hand or let us know in the chat option. I'm Maddie and I'm going to be hosting today's discussion. I currently work with Sheba Arts on their Celebrating Diversity Festival. I'm a theatre maker and co-founder of Yalla Theatre. I work as the Arts and Community Lead at RAPAR, Refugee and Asylum Participatory Action Research, where I facilitate the RAPAR Drama Group, which is an associate company of Sheba Arts. I'm joined today by Emmanuela Yogolelo, a singer, songwriter, singing facilitator and producer. Rhetta Moran, founding member of RAPAR and chair of trustees. Aqeel Abdulla, theatre academic and producer, and Emmanuel Bajij, an applied storyteller, actor and director. Our discussion today is going to focus on two main areas, the first being diversity in the arts. The arts industry replicates the structures in our wider society. Those in charge, those with funding and power, are often rich, white and male. There are emerging initiatives and organisations working to increase diversity in all forms of art. However, there are still structural and cultural barriers which prevent equal opportunities for engagement in the arts. People from all backgrounds, of all gender identities and races have been telling their stories and truths through art for millennia, but rarely are they heard or listened to without the financial backing or the political pertinence. Our panel are going to be sharing their understanding and experience of the barriers that prevent equal representation in the arts. We're asking, who are the gatekeepers, particularly to funding? How do we experience diversity initiatives? How do they feel to be a part of or to engage in? What would we do or do we do to make the arts a more equal, diverse industry? The second area we'll be focusing on is art making as a form of self-advocacy. Arts provide a space for expression. They allow people to reclaim ownership of narratives and shape these stories for themselves. Community art can provide a space for people to work with others with a similar lived experience. It can be a rare space where people are allowed to let go of imposed titles and meet on an equal level as artists. Art can be an alternative form of testimony. Art can capture something of our experience which words alone can't. It can also help us to make sense of our feelings in a unique way. Some of the questions we'll be touching on are, how do we avoid testimony or personal storytelling becoming exploitative and extractive, insisting people tell their story for the sake of other people's interests? How do personal narratives get shown in a way that isn't voyeuristic, that doesn't make a spectacle of people or their lives in a way they don't want? How do we get art heard and respected? And how do we make sure the work is led by the community and artists from that community and remains led by that community and artists from that community? So, to start off the discussions, we have Emmanuela Yogolelo, a singer-songwriter, singing facilitator and producer. Emmanuela has started a number of initiatives in Manchester, including a women asylum seekers-led community group and choir called Testimony, and a diverse-led arts and cultural organisation called Amani Creatives. Welcome, Emmanuela.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Could you talk a bit about your experience as a Black female artist and arts leader in the UK?
Okay, thank you. So I've been living and working in the creative industry and in general in the art and culture sector for nearly 16 years now. I'm originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa. And in those years of my work in the creative industry, I've experienced a number of challenges as a Black African, as an immigrant. And I'll talk just about maybe two challenges. So the first challenge I've experienced and still experiencing from time to time is people's perception of diverse creatives' work has been of non or less professional quality and value. And I tried to understand the reason why for this perception. And I learned, believe it or not, that for some people, just the fact that someone is Black, someone is an immigrant, someone is from a third world country, they can produce a professional work. And I also thought about a specific thing. I realized how most opportunities diverse creatives like myself we have are community-based. Most of the time we have opportunity to showcase our work, to raise our profile through community programs. Rarely we access professional platforms, professional opportunities, or maybe we are picked up by relevant media. And then people who are used to see us in community contexts, through community programs, it's normal they end up associating us and our work with community. Something that is amateur, something is not professional necessary. And then I realized as long as the only opportunity we'll be having is community-based, not professional as well, we are stuck with this non-professional profile and people believing what we're doing, who we are, they are not professional enough. And before I talk about the second challenge, in my opinion, some ideas about the solutions to this first challenge. So which includes people's perception and also, yeah, it's just generally about people's perception of our work being of non or less professional quality. So I think first of all, as diverse creatives, we need to keep producing work of high quality. We shouldn't be discouraged. And I'm not saying everything should be necessarily professional, because amateur art exists as well. Community art exists. Some people are doing it just for fun, they are not doing it like a professional thing. But for us who are professional and want to be claimed professional, we should keep producing work of high quality. As for opportunities for us to always showcase race profile only in community programs, I think it's time we start accessing professional platforms as well, but also the media need to start talking about us as well. So two things there. And there is nothing wrong with community programs, because anyway, they gave us that first step. And sometimes, and everything is community anyway. For me, the overall life is community. So nothing wrong with community programs, but it's just, it's not right if every and each opportunity is just community-based. So it should be a mixture of opportunities. We should also have professional opportunities. We should also be picked up by relevant media. Now I'll try to talk about the second challenge. So another challenge I've experienced is really linked to the way I see it. For many years in the UK, diverse people have been represented and led by people who are not necessarily diverse people. And now, when we decide we want now to start representing ourselves, we want now to start leading ourselves, there is a number of things that start happening. Let's use the example of funders. And some try to explain it because you don't have a track record. Maybe you don't have a qualification. Maybe you don't have this and that. But everybody starts from somewhere. So if there is not that first chance, that first opportunity, how am I going to build that track record? So the tendency is no one come to us directly. They have to come to us through other people. those who have been representing us and leading us. Instead of just coming directly to us, they go first to those people. So in the end, all we can manage to do is just these small initiatives, because those who were already there before us, it's them who have the resources. They've got the experience, they've got contacts, they've got connection, and so on. Of course, like us, they started from somewhere, they built all those things. We need to build it. But we can't build anything without people understanding. It's not every single time. Before you get to us, you need to pass through somebody else. Just come directly to us, whether that is in terms of a conversation, engagement, consultation, I don't know what, everything. Sometimes, of course, for one or another reason, logically, they can still go through other people to get to us. But I think in other cases, you just come directly to us. Anyway, we're no longer babies. Maybe we don't have enough experience. We don't have the whole expertise, all knowledges, but we are adults. We are working hard. We are getting there. You can judge us based on at least what you got from us. But first come to us, get to know us, then you realize some of us have qualifications, others have experience, others have contact, connection, and so on. So to finish off, so that was like one of the solutions, an idea for solution. Another thing, I think we need a lot of education and informing people about the diverse communities. Because like I said, for I don't know what reason, for someone it's just normal to think because someone is Black, because someone is an immigrant, because someone comes from a third world country, they can't do a professional production. It doesn't make any sense. So for me, it's just a question of informing, educating. And like I said, it's also up to us to keep producing high quality work. So in terms of ideas for solution, yeah, maybe educating people about professional work produced by diverse creatives, and also getting relevant media involved in promoting, marketing us and our work, because really I wouldn't disrespect or neglect anybody because of their level or status. Even the newspaper in your neighborhoods, it's already something. But at some point, we need more than these really neighborhoods newspapers. We need more than these community radio talk show. We also need maybe BBC. We also need maybe ITV, I don't know, and so on. So I think that's what I wanted to share with you guys in terms of my experience. My experiences in terms of challenges I've come across as an artist and as a producer as well. Okay.
Thank you so much, Emmanuela. That was really, really interesting, and I think you covered so much stuff and offered a lot of solutions, which is really great. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Rhetta Moran, who is the researcher and co-founder of RAPAR and currently leading on the Status for All campaign. Welcome, Rhetta.
Hello everybody, and thanks very much, Maddie, and thank you for asking me to be here, and hello to everybody. And I suppose what I would like to do is ask you to remind me when I've been speaking for a few minutes, Maddie. Yeah. That would help, thanks.
No worries.
And I'd like to start, thank you, Emmanuela.
Thank you.
I would like to start by picking up a thread from you, which kind of connected with what I was thinking that I would begin by talking about. Because one of the things that you said that I think is very, very important for understanding how we begin to go towards solutions is when you said the overall life is community. We are all part of the solution. And you also just latterly talked about never neglecting or disrespecting anybody because of their status. And I suppose for me, what I've come to understand over 20 years plus, working inside of a model, a way of working that really has three key words: participation, action, and research is at the heart of the model. What it is that I've come to understand much more deeply than before is no one else can experience my life. No one else can experience your life. No one else can actually experience what any single one of us is living. But the context, the environment within which we are living is one which systemically and intentionally, and it's evolved over millennia, actually actively suppresses or fractures our own sense of our own being, to the extent that we are all, to some degree or another, self or other alienated. We're alienated from ourselves, and we're alienated at some level from everyone around us. And so how does the experience of art, what is art when it comes to experiencing that community that is life? What role does art have in that? And I would say inside of our work, inside of my work, what's happened really from the very beginning is understanding and keeping on reminding myself and everyone else involved, and then keeping on reminding me that nothing is going to actually work without self-agency. Nothing is going to get rooted and grow in a way that is healthy unless it is my seed that is planted and watered alongside everyone else. But when it comes to the world of the displaced person in the 21st century, and just confining ourselves to think about the environment within which we are existing in the UK, if we are displaced and we do not have that status, then we are systematically externalized from the community. We are systematically located outside. And what that means is, in practice, extremely important exclusions, like not having the right to work legally. What does that do? Apart from completely undermining our sense of our own capacities and abilities to participate in the way this world is structured, in such a way that means that we can put food on our table and a roof over our head and look after our children and whatever. What it also does is prohibit us from physical spaces within which it becomes possible for us to both experience and share our humanity with many other people. Because if you think about it, as an adult, where do we meet people who aren't like us? We'll meet them in the workplace. We're most likely to meet the biggest range of people in the workplace. We'll also meet people in our community. If we're parents, we might also meet different people at the school gates. But the way in which the state, and I'm saying the state rather than the government, because even the most cursory examination of the laws that have been written down over the last 20 years show us on a factual basis that irrespective of the political complexion of the government, the approach has been fundamentally one of exclusion and effectively criminalisation. Effectively, it is impossible to enter the country as a person who is a refugee without actually being rendered illegal in the process of entry. So for me, the challenge is always to stay alive to the need to continuously reflect, be reflexive on what it is that each of us is doing to equalize. We are having to keep on confronting a society that keeps on telling us we're different from each other, we're separate from each other, some of us are better than others. There's very clearly a vision now of a post-COVID world, which has an extremely small elite who will be living so high up or in such exclusive areas that their air will be relatively clean, while the rest of us will scurry about underneath, trying to avoid being part of the herd that gets infected. So we really do have everything to fight for when it comes to every single act that insists on our individual humanity, on our fundamental equality, and on our right, and indeed our responsibilities as human beings, to find creative platforms upon which people can stand and share and show together, but also from which people can create all kinds of different and, in essence, autonomous artifacts that will last into the future in their own right, but that will also become new hubs from which people can grow. So picking up what Emmanuela was saying as well about there always being gatekeepers and people who stand in front and you have to come through them in order to get where you want to go. I do think it's essential to keep on referring back, just checking myself in the context of the organisation that I'm talking from, checking how our organisation works itself in order to ensure that everybody who has got the capacity at that moment in time to actualise for themselves, usually in relation to their case or in relation to some aspect of what's happening that's wrong for them in terms of housing or being criminalised or whatever. We have to just keep, it's organic, we have to keep on coming back to the baseline, to keep on checking ourselves and checking each other and making sure that that is moving forward. Let me just see if there's anything else that I feel to, I will give a little plug. Well, it's not a little plug, it's a big plug. I think it's a really important plug. The status now that Maddie referred to at the beginning, what that was the 27th of March, about 35 organisations from across the UK and Ireland, some of them refugee and migrant organisations, but others very mainstream organisations like the British Association of Social Workers for Wales, for example. About 33 organisations originally signed an open letter to Boris Johnson and Leo Varadkar, the Taoiseach of Ireland, calling for status now, as in leave to remain, for everyone in the UK and Ireland, irrespective of where they were inside of legal process and irrespective of where they were in terms of being even completely undocumented. And that has now got I'll put the details up afterwards, but that's now getting some legs. This week, for the first time, the BBC carried a story, and I'll ask Rhetta and Maddie if they might share that link afterwards. And that was an example where people who are undocumented themselves have actually, in their own words, described how they are surviving and what the pandemic has meant for their survival. And it just needs to keep on growing and growing and growing. And the only way that we are not going to turn that, we're going to avoid turning that into something that's hierarchical and some people are in the know and some people aren't in the know, is by keeping on growing. And I can tell that Maddie wants me to shut up, so I am going to shut up. Thank you very much
I was trying to work
indeed.
out how to subtly come in, because you are on time. Thank you, Rhetta. Thank you for that. We're welcoming now Aqeel Abdullah, a theatre academic and practitioner and the founding director of Yalla Arts, company based in Exeter, Devon. Welcome, Aqeel.
Thank you.
Thank you. As an arts practitioner and an academic, how do you find the theatre industry for diverse people? And what is your experience of tokenism and box ticking in the British theatre industry, and how do you propose that it can be countered?
Okay. I would like to follow a different path to answer this question. I'm going to try something different, which is that I would like to offer people listening and watching some historical background of participation in theater for people who belong to minority groups in this country. I think that would be very useful for our conversation, and I'll explain why at the end. So basically, I would like to take us back to 1976. And a racial crime happened in 1976. A young man who was Sikh, from the Sikh religion, was killed by a group of white supremacist fascists in Southall in London. That crime shocked the nation back then, and it came as a culmination of a couple of decades, actually, of hate speech and sensationalized ultra-nationalist and ultra-racist rhetoric against migrants in the UK, especially because in that time, in the 60s and 70s, huge numbers of migrants came from people from a South Asian background, came through African nations like Kenya to the UK, and that obviously was not welcomed by racist organizations and politicians in this country. So the crime in 1976 that I'm talking about was a culmination of that. It wasn't out of the blue. It was a culmination of that atmosphere. Tara Arts, the first ever British Asian theatre company to be established in the UK. And I think, I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. I think it's the first theatre company in the UK that focused on a specific minority group. I'm not sure about that, but I'm sure that it's the first British Asian theatre company. It was founded in 1977 by a group of, the founding members were young men, most of them studying in higher education, none of them in drama. None of them had anything to do with drama back then. They were unsure of, and this is I'm going to be sharing with you research done by different people and myself. So this is according to Sarah Datswell and Graham Lay in their book published in 2011. So they were unsure what form their response to ongoing discrimination and hate speech, and particularly to the crime I mentioned earlier, in what form this response should take. But they were looking for cultural expression rather than direct political action. Their main choice eventually fell on theatre making, according to Datswell and Lay. They could initiate and steer this themselves, at least at a rudimentary level. And they were convinced of the need to advance the visibility of young Asians in acts of cultural self-representation. So Tar Arts, one of the most recognized theater companies in the country now, was established not exactly as a response to that crime, but as a response to a hate culture that and a hate atmosphere that culminated in that crime. It came as a direct response to that. We move on a little bit to 1985, when in 1985, Black Theatre Forum was established, and it included Caribbean, African, and South Asian theatre companies in England. The companies from these minority groups felt the need to organize themselves into an alliance in order to be more influential, to lobby for more financial support from Arts Council, and get more facilities and venues to perform and reach audiences beyond their own local communities. Dimple Gadiwala writes that the use of the common Black banner by artists of African, Caribbean, and Asian descent was an act of resistance towards discriminating racial practices within the British system, rather than a way to level differences of histories, traditions, and personal aesthetic researches amongst the communities forced together in the multicultural melting pot. So basically, what Dimple Gadiwala is saying is that using that very generic term, Black theatre, was not to dilute the different cultures that come under this umbrella, but as a resistance, as a rallying call to a culture of discrimination. Yet, despite apparent advantages of this collaborative approach, the Black Theatre Forum organized an annual Black Theatre season. So Black Theatre seasons, despite the initial success they had and the obvious advantages, they only had short-term benefits, like attracting public funding and mainstream media attention to those events in themselves. But when thinking of development on the long term, some practitioners called for integrated casts as a sign of the progressive inclusion of the Black theatre within the mainstream British culture, according to Terciano in his book in 2006. And I can share the names of these resources in the break, actually, in the chat, for anyone who wants to read more on that. So there was worry that this is inadvertently leading to a kind of cultural apartheid rather than collaboration. Moreover, some artists felt that, as well-intentioned as it was, the idea of the generic Black theatre banner was inevitably a limiting and oversimplified articulation of the very rich and diverse cultures that the forum represented. So why am I saying this? Let's think for a minute that I'm talking about events in 1977, in 1985, in the 70s, in the 80s, many decades ago. And we are talking about groups of people who, when they wanted to represent themselves in culture, they had to carve it in stone. It was never offered to anyone. It was never they were never called or invited to share their culture, to become visible, to have a platform. They carved it out of nothing. They fought for it. It came out of necessity, of a life and death necessity, as a kind of radical response to radically racist and hostile environment. Let's, again, we are talking about the 70s and the 80s. Fast forwards many decades, and let's come to now. The same arguments are still being had. We are still talking about, is it a good idea that theatre companies like Tamasha, Tara Arts, Yellow Earth, Kali, Khayal are focusing on certain minority groups? Is this limiting, or should they seek out more open approach? The answer is they have done all. They have tried everything. These companies have tried to be platforms to represent certain cultures, as well as they tried to be an environment, a safe and supporting environment for artists from those specific cultures to produce work, regardless of the topic or the content of that work. And they tried collaborating with other art organizations, mainstream art organizations and venues. Yet the situation is still the same. We are still pigeonholed. Why? Despite all these efforts over all these decades, because the attitude is still that we are a box that needs to be ticked. And it never moved. It never moved, not even a little bit. So when Ferishte was having these conversations with me at the beginning, in one of our conversations, she formulated the question as, is the art industry doing anything more than lip service? I don't think it's even doing lip service to artists from minority groups anymore. I don't think that even that is happening. I think that people from any minority group in this country who are trying to be heard, who are trying to have a platform, who are trying to filter into the center, are having to fight for it, unless they happen to fall in that kind of right timing when a certain organization or a certain venue needs that box to be ticked. I'm going to give you a very quick example on that, the box ticking practice. One very talented playwright, British playwright, her name is Atiha Sengupta. She, when she was very young, she wrote a play called What Fatima Did, and it enjoyed success. It was supported, I don't remember who exactly, but there was a very famous theater venue, very mainstream theater venue that commissioned her as a young playwright to write that play, and it enjoyed huge success and acclaim. That was a play written by Atiha about the Muslim community and a young Muslim teenager who suddenly abandons her former very liberal lifestyle and wears the hijab and changes her kind of attitude in life for religious reasons. I interviewed Atiha for my PhD many years ago, and she mentioned that I asked her about the idea of, okay, that was the initial project that you were commissioned to do. It enjoyed a lot of success. What happened then? Did they support you further? And she said that the next place she gave them was on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And they said, no, Atiha, we cannot commission you to write that because you're neither Palestinian nor Israeli. So it's there's a problem with credibility here. And she said, well, I'm not Muslim either, but you never asked me about that when I gave you a play about the Muslim community. So, I mean, how can I comment on that? It's just that the fact that she belonged to the South Asian community, so they look Muslim, that's enough. That's good enough for us. That's it. No ethical problems here. She looks like one of them. Why should we ask her? But she clearly doesn't look, and we know from her name that she's neither Palestinian nor Israeli, so we cannot commission that. It's unethical. So that's a very blatant example of box ticking. And that's it. We don't want anything else. It took her a few more years to have another play commissioned, which wasn't about either the Muslim or the Asian community. So I just wanted to kind of bring our attention to our attention the fact that this is not a new conversation. This has been happening since the 70s, and it's still happening, and it will continue to happen because there is a problem with the attitude in the industry. That attitude is that we need those people to tick some boxes for us. There's nothing else. There's nothing else on the agenda other than box ticking. So I hope, my only hope is that we will be more and more stubborn and more loud and not take no for an answer, and that audiences are going to support us more as we try to say no to tokenism and claim our rightly deserved position in the culture.
Thank you, Aqeel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are joined now by Emmanuel, who is an applied storyteller, actor, writer and director for stage and screen. I'm just, as a quick reminder for anyone who's been inspired to kind of ask questions or has any thoughts on anything that anyone said, just keep it in your mind, or you can pop it in the chat and we'll get to it just after Emmanuel in a quick break. So keep those questions. Welcome, Emmanuel. You're on mute. We can't hear.
Unmute?
Yeah, you go. Hello.
All right, you can hear me now.
Just a few questions. How is the art sector currently failing artists from migrant and refugee communities? And how can things be done differently to support their creative development journey? How do we get art heard and respected? And are the doors of venues really open to artists of colour?
Thank you. I feel like it wouldn't be possible to do those questions justice in just 7 minutes. However, we'll try, okay, just to mention some bullet points. I think the problem of how do we create the development of the creativity of migrant and refugee artists, one of the things is going to be depending on funding. And that is not just funding of the artists themselves, but for funding for everybody who is involved or who is supporting these artists or who claims to be supporting them. And because if also there's no funding in those areas, these people will have nowhere to go. But also funding for the artists themselves so that they can focus on their work. Otherwise, people have to abandon their art to do other things. So it would be very helpful for these artists to be able to be funded and so that they can focus on their creativity. The other thing is the opportunities for training. There should be more opportunities for training because people will be coming from different places, different cultures, and are accustomed to working in different ways. So if those ways may seem less relevant, though there isn't such a thing with creativity other than on the other side of it, but with the actual creativity, there isn't usually much that is needed other than people being creative, but it's finding these trainings that they need to attend. And also these trainings, are they just one-offs that tick boxes for the person who is running them, or they actually practically develop these artists and move them from one place to another, other than leaving them just where they are, which can create a sense of stagnation when these artists are working and developing. But also consulting participants, you know, what do they want to do? Because there's a tendency of, the question is, whose creativity are we dealing with here? Because organizations or individuals will create their own projects and decide what they're gonna do, decide what the needs are, and assume how they're gonna be useful to these particular groups. And then the participants come last. They just come and impose a project on these people, whether they need it or they don't. So actually, do these people need that? Does it help them grow? Have we consulted them? But also, is it allowing growth or we have a misconception that they need this because we assume they are this or the other, or they come from a certain place, so we don't expect them to. People are at a certain level. So if we really are committed to this, then there would be development and growth in this community of artists and of refugees and migrant background. And it's also kind of creating employment for these artists, because usually you'll find that the artists are only supposed to come in as participants. They never graduate to that level of actually, I can lead this, I can facilitate it. No. Just come and attend. And then it reaches a point in the end where some people have the confidence to go to an organization and say, hey, wait a minute, you use the same director all the time. Why don't you use these people? For years they attend and participate. Somehow it seems like you've been doing nothing, because they're in the same role. Create that opportunity, create a process that will allow them to be in those moments of leadership. Because sometimes it's not about an issue of color or an issue of being from that community. It could be also an issue of culture, other than race or in particular. So it is important that we empower these groups to develop creatively, other than just keeping the same position. But also commitment by organizations. Organizations are usually not committed. So really, if they're going to do it, they'll have to commit to it, other than just something that they've got to do because that funding has come out for them to provide. And but also the question is, there's a tendency of, oh, there is no funding. Now, wait a minute. When you're calling people to join in, or the executives will come and sit and you'll make it look really cool. And then when the whole thing starts, there isn't much funding. So, well, all your other projects are funded. What about this particular one? Why are you doing it if you're not going to commit to it? That's the question that I can never understand. And there isn't funding. Well, yeah, we are marginalized in so many areas. And even we are marginalized in funding. So the question is it the lack of funding or the lack of willingness to fund this group of artists? I mean, I can go on. There are so many points that I can't just do in one go. So another, in 7 minutes. Another point was about how do we get this work heard and respected? Sorry, but this is going to depend on the migrant and refugee artists themselves, mainly. Because unless we're driving this thing, and nobody's going to drive it for us. You don't expect somebody to do for you what you want done for you. Like Rhetta said, nobody's going to live your life for you. I know the opportunities are limited, but we've got to hustle. We've got to go out there and how can we make these things happen? You know, it would be about, I mean, we have to start creating our own opportunities. I know that is limited, but also we need to go out there and find out who's funding and seek audience with these funders. In most cases, they will say, oh, yeah, the Arts Council is coming. Oh, are these the people making the decisions? Oh, actually, what am I going to talk about? You come with an approach that is already limiting. I mean, I've found a lot of things on the form that are limiting. The moment I start an application, I'm kind of, honestly, without being rude, the process will disgust me and I feel it's demeaning. I don't want to do it. Why should my ethnicity come first other than my creativity? Why tick these boxes? Why impose on me partners that I probably may not necessarily want to partner with for you to fund me? It comes that it's structurally put there to subject me to certain authorities or legitimate so-called organizations. And I'm like, let me make a choice. I shouldn't be taking my blackness or my greenness for you to fund me, fund my art. And it's like, when are you gonna trust us to do this work? If you continually look at us with suspicion that, oh, no, we can't fund them unless they have, I need no master to show me what to do. to endorse me, to say, oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, but also we gotta work together to see that we create these partnerships, we support each other. We go to independent small venues if the big venues are pigeonholing us, you know. Let's refuse to be labeled, filed, indexed, and say, no, we gotta do what we gotta do with our creativity. But also the fact that we have to make good work that is coming to us. Let's make our work good, because, you know, whether you're a computer scientist or a great screenwriter, or your career, as they say, making mousetraps, even if you're out there in the jungle, if your work is good, they will create a path. Not with with the tools, but with their own feet and get to you. Go to small venues. If you're not valued, I mean, sometimes I'm like, just boycott the whole thing if you can, until when they say, all right, yeah, because the thing is, you encourage them to treat you the way they treat you. There are funding opportunities that I don't go for, simply because I don't want to keep encouraging this bad culture in these organizations and in these festivals that makes them assume that they can only get you for peanuts. No, man, that is not possible. Let them do it themselves. Then go out there and do these things. How can the work be hard? It can be hard when you don't promote it. It can be hard when it's seasoned. And I mean, when I say seasoned, I mean it's in particular seasons, but it might as well connotationally or mean seasoned as they've put some seasoning on it, like a piece of meat or whatever. Because unless they've seasoned it with whatever spices that fit their description of that and tick their boxes, it's not gonna show, you know? This art has been put in this. I mean, we'll have Christmas in Britain, but refugee and migrant art has been put in the same category as Christmas trees. As Christmas trees sell during December, refugee and migrant art sells in June. You don't hear from them the whole year, you know? It's like Black History Month. My history is all year round history. My culture is all year culture. So don't season me. No, I refuse. But what we need to promote that culture. And I think the way we can do that is in a way that is each one teach one. Encourage each other, participate with each other. I mean, there's so many things that I can mention here, but I mean, Rhetta talked about the value of everybody, you know? The value of everybody is like asylum seekers or refugees or people who can't be paid. Already they're in something, it's an existence which is similar to an open prison, you know? Their rights are limited. So if people don't, I mean, I went and worked for an organization that is campaigning for people. If they're waiting, they can be allowed to work, contribute. We should all be creating systems that will benefit these people. There is a lot of art that is not being created, unheard stories, hidden stories, because funders won't fund, you know, because the agenda doesn't fit. Structurally, they are limiting these groups, even the groups that are springing up. Now there's a concept of bigger organizations looking at how they can support these small organizations. Well, don't swallow them. Let them carry on. Let them do what they think will work for them. We have to know that I've seen, since I came to England, I've seen trees develop and grow into tall trees, change, evolve. But where is the evolution of the artist? The refugee artist, the asylum artist. They keep them in the same place. These people grow. Their art form grows. We can't limit them. But also, you can't pigeonhole. For example, I'll ask everybody who's watching out there. Oh, these are refugee artists, asylum-seeking artists. We don't label you. Some people maybe have gone through it. This is just an experience. Some people have gone through divorce, maybe, let's say in the arts. We don't call them divorcee artists. No, they're beyond that. It's about their creativity. And also the thing is, are the doors open? I don't know, man, unless it fits them. Because when you go there and you don't fit in that category, no, they're not ready for you. if when they are programming, it is limited unless it is June or October or whenever, if you're lucky. Program these things, encourage other audiences, publicize, involve people, change perception, you know, don't have premisconceived ideas. I don't know, I can go on, but there's a lot to mention. And I think I've probably gone beyond the time, haven't I? So I don't know. It's up to everybody there who's watching or listening. Each one help one, encourage each other. And if it means not going for these fundings, well, make our work good. If it's good enough, they will find it. They will come for it. They will have dialogue with this group. So, I mean, we can only try, but if I'm applying for help from the oppressor, whether it's structurally or institutionally, that doesn't really help, because they will put in this. I mean, the things like we will have, okay, Asian or Black people are not involved in theater. Let's give them a Black theater, an Asian theater. No, that is systematically blindfolding you with that opportunity, but actually they are pushing you further. I mean, with aspects of diversity and all these things, it's a smoke. They are covering up, giving you something to focus on. Don't fall for it. Let's find other means of. Anyway, I can go on, but I think there's the responsibilities on both sides, and there's a chance for growth, and it's on both sides.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you so much. That was, yeah, great. Thank you. We're going to have a quick comfort break now for 10 minutes. So we'll come back at 3:10. And in the second part, it will be an open discussion. So you can ask any of the panel to like expand on anything, or if you've just got your own point or question to make, yeah, it'd be great to hear them. So see you in 10 minutes, 3:10. Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to read from the chat if there's any questions. A few people have said that they've had to head off. And Aqeel shared all of those references. So if anyone's interested in them, they're all in the chat. If anyone's not seen them.
I've given you homework.
Yeah. Extra reading.
That's the academic in me. I have to give people reading suggestions.
Sarah, did you want to voice your point, or do you want?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it could lead into a question, really. I suppose I was just picking up on Emmanuel's point about leadership, and just feeling that is just so key. And actually, you know, what you were saying there about Emmanuel, about training opportunities that really don't lead to anything, and how frustrating that is. And I suppose, you know, I've been around a while, and you know, I agree, nothing much has changed, you know, so since in the 20 years that I've been working in this area, nothing much has changed. And I really do feel that we need more people in leadership powers who are with power and influence, who are from Black and minority backgrounds. We just need more diverse leadership, basically. So I just wondered if any of the panel had anything more to kind of add to that, or kind of suggestions as to kind of how that might happen, or thoughts on that. Because it's about changing structures, isn't it? And how we change those gatekeepers as well, so that we don't have people who are the gatekeepers creating ridiculous funding applications that are so skewed towards people from a certain background with a certain education. Yeah.
I totally agree with Sarah. Definitely we need people like from minority communities who will have power and influence. But again, how do we define power and influence? Because someone might say, right now, those diverse people we know, who among them will have power, the kind of power we're talking here, or influence we're talking here? That's one side of the question. Another side of the question will be, power isn't always maybe cash or money. Maybe power is also just faith, maybe is creativity, exactly. Because sometimes where we don't have cash, we can still bring in advantage of technology and internet. So I don't know if anyone also has thought like that or felt that way, because definitely, but we still need to understand also right now who among us will have those kind of powers we after, those kind of influences we need.
It's really interesting just hearing you speaking, Emmanuela, and just hearing that word power. I'm thinking actually, as soon as we talk about power, we start to think about power over, don't we? So maybe there's something about language as well, and framing that in a different way. Yeah.
If I can add something,
not even change of language, because even just as simple as power, not power as a king or a queen or a president or prime minister, but power as to change the status quo, power to get our projects done the way we want them to be done, and so on. Even just that, who has that power right now? Because what we want, what we wish for is to exactly what, like Emmanuel was saying, to design projects that really make sense to us. Don't just throw at us these projects that will make difference in our lives or in our careers. But right now, who has those power? Who has those kind of powers and influences?
If I may add something to this idea that Sarah mentioned. I think that's extremely important step to have people in decision-making positions who are diverse, from diverse cultures and diverse experiences. And that's because it is inevitable that each one of us has their own biases and their own personal interests. We're not angels, we're not completely neutral. And as well-intentioned as they could be, people who are in decision-making positions, when they try to do the thinking for us and tell us and how we can represent ourselves or our communities or our cultures better, it's not going to work. You need someone from these different minority groups to make those decisions. You need to show trust and confidence and appreciation of communities for themselves to find ways to represent themselves and not wait for your kind of decision from up there, up the pyramid to say, I think this is the best way to do it. So here you go, there's some money and try to do it. I'll give one example on this. If we think about the BBC, for example, BBC News, this is a very silly example, but I think it's representative. You can see that there's a huge percentage of TV presenters, news readers and presenters on the BBC from very diverse backgrounds. But then I came across, and I used to think that this is actually, it's very visible in the BBC. But then one time I was reading a study about the editors in the BBC. There's over 35, and there was one who was not white man. There was one who was not a white man. So it's not a coincidence to have like half of your team presenting the news who are the kind of visible for people watching, who are Black or from Asian background or whatever, or have Muslim names. That's not a coincidence that probably half of them are from diverse backgrounds, but none out of a 35 editor team of editors. So yes, that needs to be in the decision-making sphere, not like people at the bottom thinking that, okay, let's wait for anything that's coming from up there for us to use.
Can I join in on that just for one moment? I agree that it's essential for the people who are in the leadership positions to be representative of the people who they are leading. it seems to me ridiculous if people in the leadership position aren't. But I think the reason why we're in the position that we're in goes back to actually what you talked about before, Aqeel, when you took us back to 1976. You know, the institutionalized and structural racism that was then is still now. It might be more refined in many ways, but it's all still there. And I'm remembering that there was a man killed, wasn't there, when people came out on the streets in 1976 to protest, and the police killed a man, Blair Peach, and he's one of, I think it's almost 700 people who've been killed at the hands of the police in the UK. And apart from one man who was killed at the hands of the police in the 1960s, I don't believe there's any police officer who's ever been charged or found guilty for killing somebody. So it's difficult to overstate the institutionalized racism that is at work, which obviously is inside what's happening in the arts. So for me, the question comes back to, where does that come from? Because until we deal with what creates, what's the source of the racism, it doesn't matter how much we do in terms of putting individual people forward, the source will still breed racism. And for me, that comes back to the way in which society is ordered in terms of the basis of that being a class-based society. Just one final thing. Margaret Thatcher, the first female prime minister, did dip shit for winning. Excuse my language. But Margaret Thatcher was known at the time in 1973 as a minister in the Tory party. She was called Thatcher the Milk Snatcher. When I was a child, every child in a state school in Britain got a third of a pint of milk at the lunch break in the morning, and it was extremely important for the well-being of every child. Thatcher took it away, and as a prime minister, she did plenty that was anti-woman. So unfortunately, the paradigm doesn't actually drive through, I don't believe.
Yeah, I was going to make a similar point, Rhetta, following on from what you said, Aqeel, in your sort of like presentation of stuff about how the arts industry can't really, it doesn't exist in a bubble. It can't be separated from a sort of wider political landscape and from a wider kind of societal issues. And what both Emmanuel, you were saying about seasonal is something that as in RAPAR I was very aware of in terms of like Refugee Week and like this is the time and that kind of seasonality, and what you were saying, Aqeel, about like that woman playwright who, you know, you're allowed to write about this but you're not about that, and it all kind of presents this like normative artist image of like what an artist is still considered as a white individual from a certain background. And I think and so then when people are invited into the space, they're invited in because of their ethnicity or because of this sort of perceived angle as opposed to as artists in their own right. And I just wonder what people kind of think about that. Yeah, I suppose tokenism, opening up that conversation again, but yeah.
Hi, can I mention something? Just what they mentioned, I'm just gonna read, can you hear me? I'm gonna retrack a bit because I'm thinking, yes, the need for diversity in leadership, but also the question is, we have to encourage people who will be representing these communities, but also encourage that traditional spirit of saying that don't get up there and get out of touch with the situation, because there can be people out there who will get up there and then there is no representation at the bottom or in the middle. So it's don't be know why you're there, but also we need the willingness of people to be willing to take these positions or commit to them and do something, a change. It is demanding, but there's need to be willing to sacrifice for the benefit of many others, because it's a shame that in 20 years or 10 years to come, people are still crying of the same situation, an inheritance that we have not managed to do much about. But also with diversity, I always have this question in the diversity in the arts. there can be visibility, but is there practicality? Is it practical? Like Aqeel mentioned about the BBC and these people who are at the front. Are the diverse people in those positions, do they have influence? Can they influence anything? Or they're just there, like they say, is it just to fulfill the agenda of the optics? Oh yeah, there are these faces there, there's a visibility, but they have no power. We'll send them there to do whatever we say. Those are the things that have to be looked at. I've forgotten what one of the last points that you mentioned. I just wanted to throw that in, that we have to create those opportunities, make those campaigns, but also make sure they are practical other than just decorations.
Just to kind of quick follow up on what Rhetta and Sarah mentioned now and in the comments as well, I completely agree. Just to clarify, what I meant by being involved in the decision making, I didn't mean to find someone with the right kind of skin color to put there in the board meeting and say, oh, it's diverse. I meant working with and allowing artists who are on the ground working from diverse communities to make the decisions. That's what I meant. But I completely agree with you. I mean, I couldn't think of a more xenophobic person than Priti Patel, who is now at the helm of the Home Office. So yeah, it's collaborating. So basically, to put it in a different way, I would like the art industry to work with me, not to give me jobs. Yeah, not to say, here you go, this is a job for you, do it. No, I want them to work with me.
Does anyone else have any questions or anything they'd like to ask the panel or respond to anything that's been said?
Hello? Hello? Is my voice is coming? Yeah, okay. Thank you for everyone. Hello. Just to mention about something, for me it's getting, it's bored with the title of the refugee label. And that is, I'm getting, I don't like to work this kind of label. And this label is always push us back to build a wall between us, and it's push us to not building the connection between us. So this kind of bridge, British artists is different from British refugee artists, and that is this kind of gap. Sometimes we are making more bigger and bigger because it's like Emmanuel, they talk about the refugee week in June. That is our Christmas time. I think that should be for us is always open the door to be active. I'm doing sometimes 3 kind of job. Still, I'm not doing my art. And this kind of continue with this, how continue your art, how developing, how you, if it's every year I'm waiting for June because I have a refugee and I will get something. By this way, that is why I don't like getting back from many of this kind of activity. It's like for me, I'm visual artist. I'm working in filmmaking as well sometimes. But my choice is very limited. And I'm not singer. If I'm not singing, it's no choice to be in a refugee week. If you not have a theater or other activity, and you frame it more and go back and until you find, maybe with Catherine, because you have a while from 2005, I'm working with Can. It's my, always is my area. It was very limited and very less chance. And life is make it more struggle with how to continue with this art. How can life is continue by this way. And that is make you push back for your art is going to another way and find another way for your style of life. This kind of word, I think, is different organization is coming and is take some idea, is put you in a corner, is do something, and after is leave you for waiting for another organization if it give you another chance. And by this way, that's why I don't like to the label of the refugee. Last year with Frishta, when we were organizing this festival in Heidelberg, Stockport area, it was multicultural. We have from Irish, we have actually, because I'm working in one of the resident home, I bring some of the resident from there. It's enjoying, it's been very multicultural and we are mixing together. And that is what I needed. I don't need to be different from other one. I need to be any kind of other background artist is to be with me. I need to share with them. This kind of movement is make a big change. If you are just make another line between us, another wall continue. Thank you.
Thanks, Amani.
Can I mention something?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very important. What Amanj has just mentioned. I've seen, I'll use Amanj as an example. I've seen talented artists like Amanj not going beyond that barrier, that boundary that has been created simply because of the way they started. At some point, I met somebody who was really good, and I was like, he's like, how can I go forward? And I'm like, avoid these opportunities because they're going to hold you back. The question is, I mean, people can only come, yes, during Refugee Week, but actually it comes back into the use of personal stories and the exploitation of those. But actually, yeah. Do you know what? I'm dealing with many things out there that lead to discrimination against me. There is labels that are out there, from probably my appearance. Most times that doesn't matter to me, or sometimes if I open my mouth, there's some misconceptions that will come up. But then you want to add another level of your festival that says that this is the only time where I can always participate. You're keeping me at the margin, yet really I qualify to participate in the middle of the arena. Huh? I'm an artistic gladiator. I want to be out there in that ring, doing my thing. The only reason why people keep doing these things is, though we're marginalized, we still have the desire to create art, or this art kills us. It's the steam that has to come out of our creative kettles. We create sometimes not because we want to still exist, still be seen. Sometimes we'll perform for free so that our work is still there. That shouldn't be like that. It's like, yeah, to get funding, I don't know how much little you're giving. Oh yeah, and we'll also put you on a wall of shame where I meet people saying, oh yeah, I saw you in that thing. So however I knew you is no longer valid. And I know that is not everybody, but somehow that carries on. It's realizing that it is needed. These things are needed for a place to start from, but let it not be an identity. And I think people will struggle and do other things because really there's something wrong, and we all need to wake up as artists, as organizations that fund and advocate, and just see where the problems are and try to correct them.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
I will add a little bit the experience from here. As a refugee in 2002, when we are coming here, they put us, someone from the social workers came and put in a house in the Stockport area. they give us £5 and I didn't know for what. They give me for gas and electric, something like that. I don't know what is going around. It's put it in a taxi and throw it in the house. Our neighbor, they don't know what we are, the devil, good person, what is coming inside the house. No connection between us. And me as well, I'm scared from everyone. This kind of gap in a refugee life, and in art, it's same situation is happening.
Can I say something about that? Because I do very much believe, Aman, that is orchestrated, that is designed. And at different points, when different groups of refugee people have come in to Britain, the government has taken it upon itself to invest in the processes that would enable these people to feel comfortable in the place that they arrive and to feel comforted and embraced by their community. Witness a couple of years ago, the Syrian resettlement, very, very partial, paltry and nothing. But the little bit that they did with Syrian people coming in, and they've done it in the past with, for example, Kosovan people coming in, it is willful. It is designed, I believe, to further divide, because at the end of the day, and I think this is really the big scheme on here is divide and rule. And I think that that's one of the really great things about the potential inside of the Black Lives Matter movement that is emerging, is the multiculturality that you talked about in the work that you want to be doing. Because at the end of the day, that's the only way forward, is for all of us together.
Can I mention something?
Yeah, go for
Hello?
it. We've just got a question on the chat. I don't know.
So
do you want to?
Can I just answer that quickly in regards to what Rhetta and Amani have mentioned? I absolutely agree. It's systematic. Unless you're lucky to be sent to a town of dreams like Oldham, in my case, the system will send you to a place. They say, you know what? We can't. We have no way of saying no to these people because the situation is real. We can't escape the Geneva Convention. But you know what? Let's send them to those places that are so out there that if they manage to shovel themselves out of those places with a spoon, they can stay. So it's similar. Systematically things are structured somehow to hold you back, somehow to keep you in your perimeters, somehow to draw you out of the places that could be more diverse and more opportunity for you to those places where, you can disappear and be forgotten about. And that doesn't just stop in those systems, but it also comes in the creative industry. So it's all there. And that's how we need to approach it and tackle it systematically.
Thanks, Emmanuel. There's just a question on the chat, which I think is to all of the panel, from Katie. It says, are paid internships for young people worth it if an organisation can't guarantee work or a clear progression at the end of it?
Yeah. Can I mention? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, it's better than nothing. But also they develop skills. At least it's kind of moving them from one step to the next one. Then when they do the internships, then they can probably work harder and know how to get that work that they need to do. And also in that process, you include how to say, we don't have work for you, but here's how you can help them create work, opportunities for work, or even find that work. As long as you're helping them move from one stage to the next one, it's important and it's valid.
If I can add something to this, I think that in principle, of course, paid internships, especially that you said paid internships, of course they are useful because they would provide these interns with skill sets, and they can use it in different places with different in different venues and methods. The problem with internships is very similar to what we've been talking about. It's again similar to the problem with tokenism. It's the attitude from the decision makers. One simple example I would give it from outside of this industry, completely outside. People who work in childcare, nurseries are encouraged by the government to have interns so that they can learn while they are working, and they work for something like less than £3 an hour, because apparently they are being educated and they are giving a degree in childcare at the end of it. So this sounds great. So you are doing a vocational course for free, and you are being paid, not a lot, but you are being paid something. In theory, this is great, but now we have a situation in nurseries, and I know that because my wife worked in this industry for many years, where young people, especially young girls, aged 17 and 18, and sometimes 16, are being exploited into really hard work and offered very little guidance and real training under that pretext of internship, government-supported internship. So it goes back to the idea of the attitude. And this is very similar to what we've been talking about with Refugee Week and Black History Month and art organizations that are limited to a certain ethnicity or a certain minority group. All of these ideas, in theory, they are good, but the problem is with the attitude that decides what happens next. Are they being used as first steps into long-term development, long-term support, or no? That's the idea. That's the problem. It's with the attitude. Or are they like the moat behind the castle that keeps people there? Okay, you're not completely in the wilderness. You're just outside of the gate. So you're nearly there. But no, there's a moat between us. So yeah, my answer is, of course, internship, paid internship is great because it gives people skills, but provided that the attitude is right. And there is at least a genuine intention to teach someone and to equip them with skills and networks so that they can use them later on.
Thank you, Aqeel. I don't know if Amon, should you want to respond?
Chinar, she want to.
Oh, great.
You go first because you wanted to say something first.
I appreciate what is all other organization or whatever they tried. That is about this we are getting in another stage. We need like a review what has happened before, and that is we are talking about the make another change. We are going to another level. It's now is getting this level end, and we need to work on another level to be the artist, the refugee, whatever the title you put it on, to be changes stage to another point. And I think we need to be, all of us, to be work together. That's, for me, we need to fill this gap. And from good base, we are starting to go to another stage. And Chinar,
yeah, you were thinking exactly the same. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't know how long we've been here, 2002. So how many years now? I'm not very good. 18 years. Yeah, I just wanted to, because Maddie, when you said everything is being like kind of deliberately, they do from the authorities, they put refugees in those areas and like kind of excluded. And so I think you are right. Now after all these years, now I'm thinking, oh my God, what we've been through, it wasn't normal. I mean, when we came here, it was because political problem. It wasn't, we didn't come to work. We had a perfect life, just it was because of war we came. But nobody here understood why we are here. And where they put us in Brimington, the worst place in Stockport, everybody hated us for no reason. Just because we were different, and that was, you know, for everyone, because everyone, you know, because everyone was. So I mean, I just wanted to link this with the art, because Aman, he's been teaching art back home, and I remember when we had only £5 a week, and he was spending, it was 3 of us, me and my son, he was only 5. So he was spending £5 a week on things from the pawn shop to get and do his art. And he was doing perfect, I mean, brilliant artwork. But who cared? And who, I mean, we didn't know where to go. I mean, people like yourself now, we're all talking to, I mean, I'm delighted to, I mean, this is the first time I see everyone, almost everyone. But it's been a very hard journey. We made it, but as Amani is saying, maybe it's, if not for us, for many people, it's a different level. And yes, we know that, yes, being a refugee and an immigrant is really a nightmare. And sometimes if you try all your life to prove yourself, still, it's not enough and it's useless. But with art, maybe it's different, because like you are connecting with educated people, with people who have wider imagination. They want to see the whole world in a different way. We I mean, believe in quality. We believe in a life that is good for everyone, and it doesn't matter where we come from. And especially because, I mean, today's life, not many people has got choice. You don't have choice to live in your home. You don't have choice whatever, even if you are English or British, you don't have choice to get the job that you want. You don't have choice even to sometimes to be friendly with your neighbor. And this has been my nightmare. I mean, we are from Iraq, and with this all social life and friendly, we can't have any friends. I mean, even our neighbors who've been here for 20 years, because that's how life it is. So it's all muddled up. It's a whole circle. And if you come and do art and to try to say, here, I am a refugee artist, and
that's why I got the border.
So it is very hard. It is very hard. But still, as I'm just saying, the next level, I mean, to be with people like yourself who understand the whole thing, and even if it's business, even if you think about it as business, Emmanuel, we are very upset because of refugee label and like Christmas thing you said. Yes, it is a business. Yes, if you work for, of course, they want to work with us because that's the way how life it is. Art and business, they go together. You have to accept that, but it's up to you. I mean, to have your own way of looking at things, how to be an artist, not to lose your own way of like positivity and looking at life. Yes, we're not home. Yes, we're refugees. Yes, life is being hell. But that's the good point about it. That's the nice thing. I mean, I wouldn't be able to live life and like to understand the whole life and people if I haven't been through the hell. Yeah, if I was home, like when I was home, I was completely, even with the war, safe, family with me, a good life, and I was it's all only because I got married to an artist. I had to leave home. but after all those years, I don't regret it. And if I find good hands, if it's organization, if it's government, I doubt if any government with this kind of attitude, neglecting the diversity, will ever give me a hand and raise my soul and give me my identity back and say, yes, you are equal. You are equal, and you don't have to hide and feel less. That will never happen. But we have to do it ourselves with cooperation, with understanding, communication, and the multicultural life. We all believe it, and like it's only hope. It doesn't help if I say, well, I'm from Iraq, you're from Iran, and I'm black and you're white, and I'm Muslim, and it doesn't help. It's a circle. It's been going on, and it will go on forever. But with a small group like yourself and us, maybe we can break that. I hope.
Before you are human. I don't worried about where I and go. You are human means you need to be equal, all of us.
Human through art, humanity through art is something beautiful.
Thank you. And can I just to support what Amani just said, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Amani, you say, what's the next step? Absolutely. That's what I was saying. Trees are growing. These artists are not growing. It's, you know, it's the evolution of the artist. He evolves, he grows from one stage to another, from one level to another. That has to be there. Even in those moments after you've done that book of life in the UK and they go and ask you, what is a kwango? And you walk around the whole street, nobody knows the kwango. They tell you, okay, now you've seen allegiance to the Queen, you swear, you hold the Bible, you say whatever. And then they say, now you're no longer a refugee. You can't claim that, you're this. Even the law somehow will manage to say, okay, now we've given you citizenship. At least they've evolved somebody legally on a piece of paper to another level. But creatively, that is not happening. And I think that's also should happen that, yes, now I've been doing this. Is there another level I can go to? It's hard to transcend community projects to another level. I think that was something that Emmanuela mentioned. I've worked on similar levels, whether it's community art or whether it's mainstream, where I was working on projects with different television channels as a voice actor. But I noticed that to transcend those boundaries, there's a level of playing that we will have to do ourselves and development. But that can be established in the leadership, in the training, and opportunities created. So absolutely, the need to grow is for everybody, and not just as artists, but for society at large. I guess that I can go on, but that's what I can say for now.
Can I say something, Emmanuel?
Yes.
Because life is being like very hard for a family, you know, an artist family. So sometime when I was seeing Aman's friend, like artist, doing an exhibition and gaining good money of it, and I was saying, Aman, come on, why you can't do that? I mean, you are a better artist. So
Get him one.
She's helped them with opportunities, with translation, you know, so he's really good, a friend of him. He's now famous, he's got his profession as an artist. So this kind of link and support is a big gap. I mean, yes, I can see, for the first time I'm talking to you. You are very clever, and you know what you're talking about, but and for most and everyone who are here, all of us, we want the best. We want not the best, but a better stage, even not. But where is the link? Where is the support? The organization that's offering help, they can't do much. I don't know if it's intended again, if it's like a limit, a frame, because if you will go above that, then they won't have any job, it will be free. Or if it's not intended, then it's something else, and like it will be lots of support. Even if someone gives you once a month to sit down with you and talk to you and say, okay, what's happened? What have you done? How is life? How is art? What do you want? For Aman, for example, he just needs a what do you call it, curator?
Yeah, curator, yeah.
Someone to give him some advice and say, well, this is what can you do, and there isn't, because he has to pay for it. And maybe for everybody else here, you know what you want, but you can't get it because you can't do it yourself.
Can I suggest something? Can I suggest something? Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Aman, I've seen your work. I've known you for years, and there are many artists like yourself, but they've stayed in a certain place and they've not moved out there. The thing is, that's also, it's our own responsibility to, it shouldn't be just Aman's journey on his own. I should be also part of his journey, because it will create stepping stones for other people. It's not just about Aman. It's about all the other creative kids who would see themselves as different, or it's making those opportunities. And it depends on how we go out there and seek things. Because yes, relevant organizations, relevant businesses, absolutely. But now we have to reach that point in ourselves also, when we say, what can we go out there and get for ourselves? How can we up our game? How can we work together? And that's the way that we can develop. Because like I said, organizations or institutions, yes, some will be for you, some will have what they do as their work, and you can only come in where you fit in. But if they can never tell your vision or your destination. You create your destination. There is limitations, but sometimes we'll have to, I'm learning how to step back and try to create my own path. And maybe we reach a point where we say, if only we hadn't created our lives, like they say, we'd continue to live in lives of other people, other organizations or whatever. So we need to get back together and not only evaluate what is there or what's going wrong, but actually evaluate ourselves, even our own progress that we are making individually or as a collective, if that helps, because your work is valid, it's great, and it needs to be out there. And now we have to figure out, if the box doesn't fit us, how can we think outside the box? Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Emmanuela, did you have something to add to?
Just to add something to what Emmanuel has been saying about joining each other on our journeys to growth or to development and as support. But also earlier on, I think more than one person mentioned creating our own opportunities. I think those 2 points are really important because like life in general, we've learned I don't know if that's how you say it in English, self-determination and self-reliance. I think it's part of what we need as well. Of course, along the sides, there is this help available for everyone. We're entitled to it as well. But I think on the sides, we need also to, we've learned in life how also we need to start creating whatever we want or we need by ourselves. So not just waiting on others' opportunities or for somebody else to come help us whenever we can, as well as definitely, as well as if help is there, it's there. We can have it. But as long as getting that help, let's on the side create also our own opportunities. And like Emmanuel said it, Amanj, supporting each other, because also, especially for me after this talk, when I was listening to everyone, it's kind of, in summary, the most challenges or the most frustrations is like this one-off opportunities during Refugee Week, during Black History, that's it. This one-off opportunities, this one-off training, one-off support. So I'm thinking, because of course it's our right for them to create better opportunities, but what about we try at our level to create that kind of all year round, I don't know, festival or all year round opportunity? I don't know, it's just an idea. Of course, you know how it always starts with the idea, then we need to find out if it's feasible. I'm thinking, coming for myself and from representing myself and Amani Creative. And let's say Ferestesh is there for Sheba. Rita is there for, sorry, what's the name again of the organization?
RAPAR.
RAPAR. So I'm thinking, let's say if in a year, in April, Amani has an opportunity, an activity, something going on. In July, Sheba has something. Later on in October, RAPAR has something. What about we connect our opportunities, our activities to create this all year round thing going on, instead of waiting for just this which pop up in June, I don't know, in October and so on. I understand. For example, for Amani, because after consultation and struggle of artists of African genre, Amani was set up as a platform to give them visibility, to help them raise a profile and so on. It will be hard for someone who's not an artist of African genre to showcase on our platform. But besides showcases opportunity, sometimes we have other opportunities. So if we can't give you a stage on which to showcase your work, but maybe we can still share a training opportunity for you. So if we think about it, I think we can manage to connect some opportunities. I might not offer you a stage, but I can offer you a place on a training. Then Sheba also might not necessarily have a spot for me as an African artist or whatever, but they might still have something else that will help me, and so on.
Thank you. May I just make one observation about what you're saying, Emmanuela? Thank you very much for that. And I think it's really great because it's strange, isn't it, how COVID-19 has meant that people who otherwise would really struggle to be in the same room at the same time, because you can just like walk in from doing your dishes or whatever and put on your Zoom. It's really extraordinary who can be together in environments like this. And I do think, because of the period that we're in politically, globally, I do think it's vital for us to be extremely opportunistic at this time about where we might go. So, for example, there was an incredible demonstration, wasn't there? A Black Lives Matter mobilisation in the middle of Manchester a couple of weeks ago. Perhaps there's something that we should do together which actually takes a bit of a space the next time that there is some kind of mobilisation of that nature, that starts to articulate about the way in which, if you like, the whispers of the revolution that to my ears I'm picking up when I see banners that are offering hope in a really very, very new way, or in a very revolutionary way, it seems to me, in certain respects globally. And it reminds me of reading, it was in the book about, it was an eyewitness account of what happened during the Russian Revolution in 1917, and in the period immediately following that, when so many things disappeared that had historically oppressed people. So and this is little known because it doesn't service those who would like us to remain inside of our status quo to know, but you know, pre-1917, it's difficult to overstate how acute the deprivation was, and that families would actually be tying their children to the legs of the table in the kitchen to go out and find food because of cannibalism. That's how profound the famine was in parts of that, in parts of what it was known as the Soviet Union. But the revolution happened for a very brief time. In my book, it was truly revolutionary. It was a very brief period, but there was an explosion. There was a creative explosion. And you had, and I've read an eyewitness account of somebody going into the Red Square in Moscow and seeing people in the snow with nothing effectively on their feet, practically, listening to the Moscow state, the orchestra. That, you know, the art just exploded in that kind of creative way. And I think that I am very struck when I'm in discussions, which I have been over the past 3 months, as I'm sure all of you have, in an arena like this, where different people from all over the world have been talking, who've come from backgrounds of war. And several of them have been able to put into words how at the beginning, particularly, they kind of felt like they were back in a war zone again, because they kind of felt trapped inside again, couldn't go out, alone, nobody cared, didn't know what was going to happen next. There were so many aspects of what was happening that took people back into it's a kind of re-traumatizing again, back to where you were. But now here we are, and I think, and I suppose Maddie will know more than me about where we might go in respect of the artistic stuff. But I think personally, from our point of view, we would love to be part of some kind of network that invites exploration of the artistic expression of people now in Greater Manchester, which is where we all are. And I think we should be bold. I think we should be very bold about it.
Thank you, Rhetta. Yeah, I agree. I think I know that we've kind of hit time now, but it's not going to be the last of these discussions. It's a part of a series, so hopefully we can kind of carry this on. And I think, Emmanuela, your idea about that kind of network of like grassroots arts organisations working together is really, really powerful, and I think it's a really, really good idea and a really good way of like keeping each other working and having things going on and stuff, without kind of having to go sort of by like bigger organizations and stuff. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and to the panel for speaking, and to everyone for asking questions. And I think Fereshte has just posted a poll, so you can give feedback. I think it should have come up on your Zoom. So yeah, thank you very much, and follow Sheba Arts on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram for details of the next discussion. Yeah, thank you very much. I don't know if anyone wants to say anything to wrap up.
Thank you, Maddie, and thank you, Fereshte, for organizing this. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, everyone.
People.
Yeah, thank you everyone, really inspiring.